Hi everyone, welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core Recruitment is a global recruitment business that specializes in mid to senior level for exec and non-exec hires. And we're doing this interview series to inject a little bit of positivity into the sector for 2026. So hopefully you can sit back, relax, and listen and watch for the next kind of like 20 to 30 minutes when we do our business leaders interview series. Now, I'm really excited about who we're interviewing today, mostly because they're the chief executive for Orient Express Hotels. And a bit of my backstory is that I was a hospitality graduate, and in 2002, when I came out of university, I was meant to be going into a global hotel management program. And because of the Twin Towers and 9/11, unfortunately, all of that got cut and cancelled. So what I did was I wrote handwritten letters to 100 of the leading hotels of the world and begged to come and work with them for free for a year. And the one company that came back to me and said, okay, we'll take you, was Orient Express Hotels. So I went to work in the Coca Palace in Rio for a year. And it was a phenomenal experience. And it kind of gave me my start in hospitality. So I owe a debt very much to Orient Express, which is why I'm so keen to have this interview today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to share ideas and thoughts and talk about our wonderful industry. So my name is Gilda Perez-Alvarado. I am the Chief Strategy Officer of Accor, and I'm also the CEO of Orient Express. It is indeed a magical brand, as you mentioned, Krishnan, and I love the personal story there. I tell you what's so fantastic about Orient Express is it doesn't matter who you meet, everyone has a connection or a story, be it through literature or a family member traveling on the train or even a desire to travel on Orient Express. So we are very fortunate to be working on the relaunch of the brand. Accor acquired Orient Express a few years ago. Now we're in the process of bringing a 142-year-old heritage brand back to life. In 2025, we opened our first hotel in Rome, the Orient Express La Minerva. We opened our first train, the La Dolce Vita Orient Express. We're in the process of opening our second hotel in Venice, which is such an iconic city and so important for the brand. And we will be welcoming to the family the Orient Express Corinthian, which is the world's biggest sailing yacht, and much more after that. But we are living an extraordinary experience, focusing on ultra luxury, focusing on a brand that needs no introduction because it's so iconic. And we have the privilege of be doing that here out of Paris and opening our first hotel and train in Italy. And now with the yacht, we will be able to literally connect Orient Express to anywhere in the world.
That's phenomenal. I also just figured out in our pre-chat that we graduated in the same year. So I really need to work on myself personally and kind of like do better, you know.
I don't think
Congratulations. It sounds like an amazing role. So thank you very much for giving us kind of like an oversight of the business. So there's hotels, there's trains, there's going to be yachts as well. In terms of
yes.
kind of like, you know, the business growth and the plans for the next 5 years, is it all three strands? Are there any other strands you're looking to add in?
No, for now we're focusing on hotels, trains, and yachts, Krishnan. And basically, what we want to do is every single asset at Orient Express celebrates a time period. So our hotel in Rome is a palazzo from the 1600s. It became a hotel in the 1800s. It is Rome's oldest running hotel. It is absolutely iconic, fully restored and renovated by artist architect Hugo Toro, who is a 35-year-old Architectural Digest top 100 architect who's French Mexican. He's done an incredible amount of work and studying in terms of renovating and restoring this hotel. And what's so interesting about it is this hotel is literally 70 meters from the Pantheon, so it's excellent location, main and main, beautiful 360-degree views. But it really did happen to be Rome's living room, and it is important that we keep it at that. We then opened, as I mentioned at the onset of the conversation, the Dolce Vita Orient Express, which is a train that celebrates the Italy of the post-war era, so 1950s, 60s, 70s. La Dolce Vita says it all. It's about sharing, pleasure, hedonism, discovery, It's we like to say that it's Orient Express's love letter to Italy, and we have amazing journeys, 1 to 2 nights, literally connecting Italy from north to south, south to north, east to west. You even get to go you cross the Channel of Messina and you actually go to Sicily. I mean, it's incredible. We will be opening our second hotel in Venice, which is a palazzo from the 1400s. Has never been a hotel. It's 47 keys, absolutely beautifully restored and renovated by another amazing architect artist called Aline Asmandaman. She is French Lebanese, an eminence in her own right. And by the way, the train is from the Moda Studio, also Architectural Digest Top 100 worldwide.
Wow.
And then the yachts, we will have 2 yachts. We'll start with Orient Express Corinthian. In 27, we will have the Orient Express Olympian. And they celebrate the golden age of travel of the 1920s. So it's a celebration of Art Deco. It's when travel was extremely glamorous. Our first yacht will grace the waters of the Mediterranean in season, and then in October it will embark on a transatlantic journey to go to the Caribbean. Our second yacht will, we're in the process of introducing now the itineraries. It's a sister yacht as well, and what's so incredible about it is the exterior of it is complete state-of-the-art engineering, latest technology, powered by the wind, obviously, and LNG. So it's very, very sustainable. It is the world's biggest sailing yacht at 220 meters in length.
Wow.
And the interiors, which have been done by Maxime Danjac, he's been extremely meticulous. What he's done is he sourced all of these craftsmen and artisans to make sure that we were being true to the codes of the 1920s Art Deco. And so the exteriors are absolutely exquisite, and Orient Express is also working with other maisons from France and around Europe that were working with Orient Express in the 1920s. Next, after that, we will be introducing another train called Orient Express. It's also an extraordinary story. These are carriages that were found in partnership with Google Satellite. They were found in the border between Poland and Belarus. They are original Orient Express carriages from 1929. And the person who was behind the search was our in-house historian, 40-year-old Arthur Metetal, who comes from Besançon. If those of you who don't know Besançon, that's the birthplace of Victor Hugo. And he has a PhD on all things Orient Express and the Compagnie Internationale de Wagonlit, which is the parent company of Orient Express. He found the carriages. They were basically transported in convoy to France, and now they're getting restored in France, Italy, and Serbia. And they will also feature 1920s. These are 1929 carriages, 1920s Art Deco design. And so again, every single asset celebrates a time period. We want to make sure that our guests are connected to what travel and life was like during that era. One, we want them to connect with others. We also like to say we want them to connect with the place and connect with themselves. I think it's really interesting. The assets themselves, each one is a chapter in a big book called Orient Express, but they can also be enjoyed together. And so one of the big pleasures that we have right now is to see our guests booking Orient Express journeys that where maybe, you spend the night at La Minerva, you take La Dolce Vita across to Venice, you'll spend a night at the Palazzo Donna Giovanelli, and then you will embark on the Orient Express Corinthian, go down the Adriatic, then do the Mediterranean, and maybe you're in the south of France and you can continue the journey. So that is very important. Every asset is small enough that it can be privatized or chartered. And what's so beautiful about the brand that you know very well is it's a brand that celebrates duality. It's fact as much as it is fiction. It is state-of-the-art engineering as much as it is artisan and craftsmanship. And it's you can enjoy it in a very social setting, or you can be extremely private about it. So it really is a privilege and a pleasure to be working on something that is so historically significant, and something where we have the codes. We've had codes of conduct, design, positioning, everything for 14 decades. And now everything we do, we have to make sure it can live on for at least another 14 decades to come.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the fact that you guys have an in-house historian to make sure that they kind of like, the accuracy of these
Incredible.
and to create these stories and these journeys, both in terms of like the physical journey, but the actual kind of like customer journey, I just think is absolutely incredible. And one thing that I remember from kind of like, the period that I spent there was the loyalty from the customer base. It's almost like, I mean, people want to experience each thing, but I remember meeting a couple who'd done like they'd done the train in Australia at the time for their 30th wedding anniversary, and then they came back for their 35th, and they'd done something else with resort. And it's almost like it's that beautiful diamond on top of the diamond, and top,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, the thing that people kind of like actually go, and it feels very much like almost like an exclusive club in some sort of way. From a brand building, I mean, loyalty even feels like a cheap word to use when you're talking about the beautiful thing, but how do you track that and how do you engage and how do you kind of like keep in touch with those people?
Was such a pertinent question right now, Krishnan. And, loyalty is very important, but I think the whole model industry-wise has evolved. Long gone are the days of just getting a membership point here and there. It's all about, being able to provide tailor-made, fully customized experiences, right? And that's something that we're seeing day in, day out, be it at the hotels or the trains, and soon we will see it on the yacht. Something that you mentioned is very important. We need to understand why people are traveling, number one, right? It might be they're celebrating something, it could be a bucket list item. Maybe they're traveling. There's quite a bit of intergenerational family travel too. We do get solo travelers. On the solo traveler side of things, we have travelers who tell us, we're perfectly content to be left alone, please. We just want to enjoy it this way. We have other travelers who tell us, I am there and I want to network and meet people. By the way, Orient Express is the best place to go and network.
Mhm.
And I think that's very true of the story of Orient Express, period, because it was always a cast of characters who were on the trains. You could have, anything from merchants to royalty to spies to lovers. Thank you, Agatha Christie, 1934 book. And, there's this playfulness around it. You have to be very curious to travel at Orient Express. And we have a very interesting combination of people, of those who, let's say, generate enough wealth to travel on Orient Express every single day of the year, and then those who, for whom this is a very important bucket list
Mhm.
item, and it's a very big celebration. And by the way, it has to be absolutely perfect. We have to
Yeah.
deliver. So in terms of this loyalty, it's all about making sure that we know the guest well enough that we can deliver that customized, tailor-made experience, but then also we also leave a little bit of room so that we can be spontaneous and we can delight. And that's really what ultra luxury is at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So I guess this leads on to my next question, which is like, and from a consumer behavior perspective, things have changed so drastically in the past 10 years. It's kind of like, it's practically unrecognizable. And plugging an iconic legendary brand like Orient Express into something like Accor, like how have you changed things? How have you adapted things to keep up with consumer behavior? And how are you introducing this incredible brand and lifestyle to a new
Mhm.
generation?
So, a couple of ways to answer that question. We're very fortunate at Accor that we have a very beautiful collection of heritage brands. In fact, we have three brands that are centennial brands that are positioned at the luxury and ultra luxury level. For example, Fairmont is the centennial brand of North America. We have Raffles, which is the centennial brand of Asia, and we have Orient Express, which is the centennial brand of Europe. And so when you're dealing, and by the way, like that, we also have Pullman, which sits in our premium mid-scale economy division. We have others that are getting up there. Sofitel, it's 60 years old. So we have brands where we have an amazing North Star, because we know, there's the non-negotiable fundamental principles that we need to abide by to make sure that we can ensure longevity of these brands. So that is very, very important. And, when we have this footprint, what it allows us to do is to make sure that we stick to our swim lane. The fact that we have an in-house historian is extraordinary. And I don't know of any other brand who has an in-house historian. But he also keeps us very honest. We can, when we're looking at a project or maybe introducing a concept, we can go to Artur and say, Artur, does this follow suit? Was this done before? Did the train travel to this destination? What is her link to this place or whatever? And if there's none, we can also ask him, can you see this? How can we weave this into the overall story? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be all about nostalgia, right? We need to make sure that we're very relevant to today's needs and wants, and we have to stay relevant for the future. And what's so interesting as well is when we look at the clientele, the demographics of who is traveling with us, we actually do have a very nice balance and combination of age groups. It's not too skewed in either way. It's people who love to travel, who are curious, who have this appreciation for culture, for the arts, for literature, and again, that are very social and very playful. There's also something very special about trains. I think most of us had a train set when we were little. There's something quite maybe nostalgic, I don't know, about it. So it evokes a lot of emotions. And because, again, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, we're celebrating different time periods. You're also leaving with something, with knowledge. I was in China earlier this week, and I was in a panel that was moderated by the great Peter Greensberg, and he was talking about the whyism. And people now want to travel for purpose. There's a reason for travel. It's not just consuming for the sake of consuming. It's or staying in a hotel for the sake of just sleeping. No, you want to explore, you want to be connected, you want to discover. And so we have so much depth, Krishnan, with a brand like Orient Express. I should also add that we are very fortunate in that Orient Express is a strategic joint venture between Accor and LVMH.
Mm.
And LVMH, obviously they have a tremendous amount of experience and success with luxury heritage brands. It's very interesting to see their approach and receive their input. That aspect of luxury consumer goods and heritage brands combined with the hospitality expertise, also the fact that we have heritage brands at Accor, that global perspective, that guest experience allows us to be able to respond and also be ahead of the current trends that we're seeing. And, you mentioned on the trend side, these were all secular trends that we had been seeing in the last decade, but during COVID, it got exacerbated. The way we want to work, live, play, this blend of how we use our time and how we use space and experiences, etc. So we're very fortunate to be at the crossroads of these tailwinds from a trend point of view, this mix of generations of travel, this desire to go see the world. And by the way, if you think about what we're doing at Orient Express, and we're very fortunate in that we started this new chapter of the brand in Italy, which is one of the world's most desired destinations. But by the way, most of our guests have been to Rome many, many times. They've crossed Italy many times. They've been to Venice many times. They've been in the Mediterranean many times. but they want to see it in a different light. And
Mm.
that is our job, to make sure that you're rediscovering places that you've, maybe that you've been before, but you never had access to, I don't know, these money can't buy experiences. So curation is very important. Programming is very important. That network effect is very important. Making sure that we have this energy flow is very important. Making sure that we can um, answer to the needs of Krishnan, who's traveling by himself, or you who are traveling with your partner, or you're traveling with a group of friends. They're very, very different experiences. And so this pre-travel conversation and planning is of utmost, it's critical. It's essential.
Absolutely. Excellent. Hilda, thanks so much for, I think we need to discover a new word or invent a new word, which is not the word brand, because to me, Orient Express is too good to be called a brand. It needs to be called something else. I don't know what it is, but it's elevated. But anyway, there you
I
go.
like, I like it. Maybe call it experience. I don't know. We'll we'll think about this one. That's
We'll
a great question. Great
we'll come up
challenge.
with something. The Orient Express and the core kind of side of things, slightly to the side. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background personally? Because you're not from the hospitality industry originally, right?
I am from the hospitality industry, but I approached it a different way. So I am from Costa Rica. As you know, Costa Rica, we're all about tourism. It's our number one source of income. When you're a young child in Costa Rica, you learn everything there is to know about being a good citizen and being very welcoming to tourists. So my mother was a hotelier growing up. She was the manager of the biggest hotel in Costa Rica, which at the time that meant 300 rooms.
Wow.
And my grandmother owned a hotel and a restaurant that we used to go to most weekends when I was younger, living in Costa Rica. Then, we moved to the States when I was 13 years old. And basically, what I did is I combined both my parents' career. My dad is an economist, mathematician, and my mother did hospitality. And so I went to Cornell. I graduated from the hotel school, and I decided that I wanted to focus on hospitality, real estate, and finance. And I like numbers. And I've always, I enjoyed this very definitive answers, black or white. And so funny, now I'm working in the gray, which is experiences and travel and operations and brands, so on and so forth. Before joining Accor in 2023, I did hospitality consulting in 2002, at the same time as you, when we graduated, and it was a very difficult time period. I ended up at PwC in Miami. I did consulting, and most of my projects were in the Caribbean, in Latin America, and in the Southeast United States. It was at the time when the industry was starting to recover, so we were going through that growth again, that reawakening after a big shock. Then in 2004, I joined JLL, and JLL is one of the world's biggest real estate investment advisory firms. I joined as an analyst. I started in Miami. I then went to New York. I worked in London, Madrid, went back to New York for 10 years. The pandemic happened, and I finished my 19 years at JLL in Miami as a global CEO of the Hotels and Hospitality Group. At that time, we were doing investment sales, investment banking, asset management, advisory, destination planning, everything and anything that had to do with the travel and tourism industry from an investor, financial investor point of view. The good thing about being an advisor and a broker and doing it at a global scale is that you have a near perfect vision of who's active, what people are doing, who's doing deals, where is the money flowing. And my specialization was cross-border investment sales. And so I got to work on some very beautiful, iconic trades, like the sale of the St. Regis, New York, the Plaza Hotel. Under my during my time there, we got to work on some very iconic sales, like, for example, the sale of the Ritz in London. The team worked on the sale of the Crillon here in Paris. And, these were very iconic sales where the money was flowing from one side to the world of the other. And that was what I specialized in. I also ran the global hotels desk. Because I was doing global, I had also the opportunity to meet with all of these very big hotel brand management companies like Accor. I was speaking with Sebastian for 6 years before I joined Accor, and he presented me with an opportunity I couldn't refuse. I really wanted to get deeper into the operational side of the business, which I had never done professionally. Tangentially, yes; academically, yes; advisory, yes; but never really get in the trench. And I was 43 years old at the time. I felt like I needed to gain this knowledge. I wanted to grow. I wanted to be in Paris. At that time, my daughter was 3 years old. So my husband and I looked at each other and we said, okay, you know what? It's time for the next adventure. And that's what we did. There were two fundamental principles that I like to follow in life. One is I want my family to be in a great place, and two, I want to learn. And so for those two reasons, I took the job. We came to Paris, and I joined as chief strategy officer of the group. And 3 weeks into my tenure, Sebastian asked me to look after Orient Express. And so it was a big surprise, but a surprise of a lifetime. And it's been an incredible 2 years and change. In terms of learning, I can tell you what I've learned from a business, personal, from a professional and personal point of view since October of 2023, when I moved here. I think it would have taken me 10 years somewhere else. So very grateful for the experience. And again, those two fundamental principles, or the why I did this, that continues to guide me day by day. So that's the story. And now I've seen a different side of the business, which has been fantastic, and part of becoming a more, a well-rounded individual, expert in hospitality, travel, and tourism.
That is incredible, absolutely incredible. There are so many things to unpick with that, and I'm going to choose kind of like three that I really want to go in on. Firstly, for individuals who are looking to gain international experience, and I'm trying to phrase this in the right way, but I've been to a lot of those international hotel conferences. They're very culturally diverse.
Yes.
They are probably populated by a lot of slightly more mature male kind of like led kind of like in terms of like
Yeah, that's
all
fair.
of those networks. So I mean, so in terms of some of the challenges and some of the factors that kind of like you encountered kind of like when you were coming up through that side of things, was it always easy? Was it always welcoming? What advice would you give to others in that scenario?
No, nothing that is worthwhile, Krishnan, is easy in life. But I love challenges, and I like to challenge myself, which is why I left. I suppose a very comfortable position where you can master your skill set, you master your role. You have a very beautiful, fancy title that opens many doors, and you live in a beautiful place. But at age 43, you cannot be that comfortable. So that's why we took on this challenge. And honestly, it was a moment of quite a bit of, I would say, we talked about the duality of Orient Express, remember, art, science, fact, fiction. This is a little bit of a duality as well, in that it takes a lot of humility to be able to do that, but it also takes a tremendous amount of strength and confidence in yourself to put yourself out there. Okay, I stayed in the same industry, but I came into a totally different field within hospitality that I hadn't done before, a new company as well, a new language, a new culture, new city. I didn't bring any of my team with me, so everything was new. I have an amazing friend of mine who I admire very much, and she's an eminence in marketing. She was like chief marketing officer of Mattel, of National Geographic, KLM. I mean, she's amazing. I met her in Saudi Arabia in 2017. And she said to me, Hilda, when you're doing something like this, you need to be like a mountain climber, and you have at least one of your hands needs to have firm grip, and even your feet have grip, and then you have a harness. You have 5 things. You had none. I said to her, yes, Rosa, I had none, but I did have, this grit in me that I needed to come and do this. And I knew why I wanted to do things, and that gives you the strength. I tell you something though, we work in a fantastic industry. And whilst there's been many times where I have been the only lady in the room, and it's been me and 20 other guys, or me or 10 others, or 30, whatever it's been, everybody has always been extremely kind, generous, and welcoming to me, because that is what hospitality is. I've always said yes to opportunities. When the opportunity presented itself to move to New York, I said yes. When the opportunity was presented for me to go to London, by the way, you gotta look for these opportunities as well. They just don't come knocking on the door all the time. You gotta provoke them. I said, absolutely, I want to go and work in Europe. And that was a great preamble for then going to Madrid. And, we had to reinvent the business there, because I moved there September 15th of 2008. And you'll remember that's the day Lehman Brothers crashed, and, at the beginning of the great financial crisis. And we reinvented the business. We grabbed the bull by the horns. And then the opportunity came again to go back to New York. And I figured, wow, I've been in Europe. We were through the GFC. I got my MBA. When I was there, I need to reinvent myself. And you need to give yourself permission as well to reinvent yourself. And okay, you might not be running. I like to say now, my move to Accor was almost Martian. I mean, it couldn't have been more different. But now I speak Martian with an accent, but I can speak. I know the rules of the road. I can figure out the currents, the underlying currents, the context, which is always so important. And I love it, but you got to put yourself out there. So in terms of, for those looking to come into the industry, yes, please come into the industry. It's beautiful. For those of us who like to say that we're global citizens, this is, this and the Foreign Service, I think, are the 2 best things you could do. And it's a very kind, very beautiful, very generous industry. It really is.
Absolutely. So as kind of executive search headhunters, all that side of things, we actually had a chief executive position that we were working on last year, and we challenged ourselves with the client to do 10 female candidates and 10 male candidates. And we approached, and practically with the male candidates, when you give them the job title in the company, they'd already said yes. And 1 of the 10 female candidates said yes straight away. The other 9 actually declined, and 7 of those 9 actually recommended male candidates instead. And when you actually go back and interrogate it a little bit more, then we managed to get the number up a little bit when we questioned that. But the 3 things that you mentioned there was A, saying yes. I love the phrase provoking an opportunity. I am going to take that away from this meeting, because that is such an incredible statement. And the 3rd thing is about being able to reinvent yourself, because I think those are 3 traits that kind of like, people sometimes maybe shy away from a little bit, but it's something which is kind of like so important. But there has been kind of like lots of research that have been done that kind of like men will look at a job description and think, if they can do 30% of it, they're going to say yes. And women will look at it and kind of say, like, if they can't do 85 or 90% of it, then they're not going to kind of say yes. So
you're absolutely right, because we've been taught from an early age that we got to strive for perfection, but with imperfection lies imperfection, and the other way around. We gotta do it, but you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable, Krishnan. And you know what's so funny? The biggest challenge all of us have, the biggest test, is when you become a parent. And when you leave that hospital, there's no instruction manuals. You have no idea what you're doing. Probably you will never fully understand everything that you're doing, but you get it done. And you gotta, obviously show that you have it under control, or at least try to have it under control, because you've got a little person looking at you, and you have to have it under control. If we can do that, we can do a job. Of course we can do a job. And there was a great lesson that, an associate of mine taught me many years ago when I was in New York. She's a fabulous lady from Korea. And she told me, Hilda, it's so important to learn how to forgive yourself and, be like, it's okay. Yes, of course. But that's half of it. You got to learn when you fall, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off and you go. That's it. It's not a setback. It's a learning opportunity. That's it. So, but again, if we don't have a training manual or, step by step, how to do things in something as important as being a parent or living life, I think we can do a job. I think
Absolutely.
we absolutely can do a job.
So going back to the Cornell thing, because this feels almost cathartic, but you now have a full role at Cornell as well, or kind of a figurehead kind of position there at the same time. Can you tell us a bit about this?
Yes, it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm a trustee of Cornell University. It's one of the biggest honors of my life to be able to serve as trustee to my alma mater, and most importantly, bring Krishnan a very different perspective. I like, I've always been a little bit of an outsider, not to say outlier, just an outsider since I was very young. My parents, we've been global nomads, so we lived everywhere in the world. And, I told you I moved to the States when I was 13 years old. By the way, also fundamental rule of Gilda Perez-Alvarado, I have to stay true to my 13-year-old self, who was very brave, and we moved from San Jose, Costa Rica to West Lafayette, Indiana. So I moved to the Midwest in December 29th. And, so middle of the winter, I remember stepping out of the plane and touching snow because I hadn't seen this before. And I went from a very nice private school where you were good at everything to a public school, gigantic in the United States, where even the method of teaching and learning was very different. And so at Cornell, I feel like, I bring a very different perspective as well relative to the other trustees. It is important that we continue to be very global. Cornell is a fabulous, fabulous university. I am extremely lucky to have been able to attend Cornell and graduate Cornell. I'm still very close to the professors. I'm still super close to my friends. In fact, we were texting earlier today. We have a group chat of classmates of mine, and the composition is a guy in Japan, a guy in Singapore of Indian background, a guy in Sweden, a girl in Jordan, and me. And so
Wow.
that's the group we were texting today, wishing each other happy holidays. And I want to make sure that globalness, globality, sense of the world being small continues at Cornell. And there's something that Ezra Cornell, the founder, said. He said, any person, any study. And we have to remain true to any person, any study. That's our compass, that's our map, that's our North Star. And so I feel a very big obligation for that any person, any study from anywhere in the world, we'll add that one, to be able to go to Cornell
I mean
and do
that whole network feels like it's one of your bricks, one of
always.
your things. Yeah, that it's important
Yes,
to you.
very important. And you know what's so nice? Every time we travel or I travel, I go to a different country, different city, there's always somebody I can call,
Nice.
either from school, a hotelie, a Cornellian, or somebody from, the past 20 odd years that we've been in the field.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. In terms of, I mean, obviously your mother, your grandmother, major kind of like inspirational figures, your father you mentioned as well. Is there anyone from sector who you kind of like, even either through your career or currently, who you look to and you think, wow, they're doing kind of like amazing things, or that you kind of
Oh
aspire
my
to?
God, every day, every time. I can tell you, I have so many people who inspire me, Christian. By the way, and so many people who've taught me what not to do, which is really important. I think that's also a very important part of the ledger on when you have an experience that maybe you didn't really appreciate at the time, or this or that. They're always learning experiences. But in terms of people who are inspiring me, absolutely. When I was looking to change careers, or thinking about what's next, how can I learn, I was looking at the people who are doing great things in the industry. And I've always been very enamored to what Ian Schrager has done, and it's such a
Yes.
privilege to have known him, and worked with him when I was at JLL. And I'll tell you a story about him, why he's so incredible. Right before the pandemic, he was going to go to Hong Kong, and he asked me if I could help him, set up some meetings. And I was running the global desk, I was CEO at the time. And so obviously we had a good network. And I said, of course, Ian, it'd be my privilege, pleasure to set up a few meetings for you. And lo and behold, he canceled. And the next day, I got a gift at home, and it was a watch. And he said, I value your time, and you must also value it as well.
Oh my goodness,
And
that's good.
oh my God, signed Ian Schrager. I mean, he's a hero. I think he's incredible. What he's done in the industry has been absolutely fascinating. I also very much admire, what Barry Sternlicht did with Starwood, and what he created, and what he's done with Starwood Capital. I think he's absolutely incredible. I joined Accor because of Sebastian Bazin. What he did to transform the company in the last decade is fascinating. The company was a premium mid-scale economy, and he added, I mean, we rattled it off in terms of the luxury brands and what he's done to make it more global. I followed him. He was one of the reasons why I joined. And, who else than Arne Sorensen? May he rest in peace. He was a pioneer. He did amazing things at Marriott. I had the privilege of getting to know him and meet him when we were working on the St. Regis. And, like that, I know I've mentioned maybe a lot of people who are way more senior to me in age and profession, or senior than me, maybe not way more, but senior than me in age and profession. There are others who are younger than me and are doing, or my peers who are doing absolutely amazing things. Will Guidara, who wrote Unreasonable Hospitality, he's a year older than me at Cornell. He's class of 01. I saw him in Las Vegas this summer. He wrote a best-selling book. He is a gem, one of the nicest people you've ever met, who is so clear in terms of what this unreasonable hospitality needs to be, how you take service above and beyond. Giuseppe Pisotti, a professor at Cornell, he's incredible. Or how about, Professor Dan Kwan? He's the reason why I did my career the way I have. And I think about him almost once a week in terms of what would Professor Dan think I should do now. He's amazing. And I have the privilege right now of working with a 39-year-old entrepreneur who's the owner of the assets, Orient Express assets in Italy. His name is Paolo Barletta. He is one of the most consequential entrepreneurs of our time. He has probably the biggest train industrial logistics complex right now. He has Golden Eagle. He's doing Orient Express. He's doing another train on his own in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in the Emirates, in Uzbekistan. I mean, he's unstoppable. He's going to go very far. I get a lot of inspiration from him. And like all of these people, many others, I do recognize I've mentioned just guys, but there's, somebody that I absolutely admire and love and have so much respect for. And her name is Leni Oberg, and she's the current CFO of Marriott. And she is an incredible professional, She is, strong as can be, and the most gentlest soul I've ever met. And Katie Keenan, who's a former CEO of BXMT, I'm a board member of Blackstone's Mortgage Trust. She's now gone to run a very big group within Blackstone, but Katie's also amazing in terms of what she's doing. So you can find a lot of inspiration everywhere, Krishnan. And I like to read a lot. So I had the privilege a couple months ago of meeting Ray Dalio, and I love him. I love his books. principles is one of them. And, you know, again, you got to provoke these opportunities. And I was
I
very
love
lucky.
that.
But FYI, he was standing next to me and I told him the story and he was a gentleman.
That's incredible. Absolutely amazing. Now, look, every day is not a sunny day in business, and I know
Mm,
on the surface it's like everyone's very good at creating their perfect LinkedIn, Instagram selves,
of
and all that kind
course.
of side of things as well. Could you tell us about a failure that you've had within, like, a failure is a strong word, but kind of something which maybe hasn't gone 100% according to plan and how you've put that right, kind of like, within your career or business?
Yes, of course. Listen, I agree with you. I think I don't believe in failures. Failures is what you stop doing, and it's bad. And you know, I'm reading a great book called On Character by Stanley McChrystal, general, of course. And he tells you that the difference between success and failure falls in your ability to persevere.
Hmm.
Couldn't agree more with him on that. And when you have challenges or setbacks, you got to, number one, remember why are you doing things? Those fundamental principles. I gave you mine. I want my family to be doing well and I want to be learning. That's it. Two things always guide me in life. So you got to understand your why. Why are you doing things? If there's a lot of things that we suffer, we spend a lot of time on, that is just noise. It's noise. It has nothing to do with your fundamental principles. You got to put it to the side. And then when things happen, you got to one, remain calm and look at the situation. There's always an opportunity somewhere. When I moved to Madrid in September 15th, 2008, I had moved to Madrid with JLL to run our debt business. I was going to run our Spanish debt desk. And of course, there was no mortgages, there was no transactions, nothing was happening, and nothing was going to happen for the next 2 years. So instead of like, thinking, oh my gosh, this is it, we got to shut down. No way. What we did is, well, let's think about what we can do. We have the skill set and we have the relationship with the lenders, we have the relationship with the investors. We created a new line of business called Business Recovery Services. And basically, we were working with the lenders who were getting the keys to properties and we were helping them asset manage. That was one of the first entrepreneurial opportunities I had. I can tell you that my move to Paris has been a walk in the park, right? I've the English meetings lasted 3 months. Then we switched to French, and my French was okay. It was not perfect, but you know what? You take it and you say, okay, you know what? Going forward, we're going to do the meeting in French. No problem. Let's go. Or I hadn't done operations. Orient Express came along. You know what? Okay, let's study what we got to do. Let's go. Let's hire the best people who are smarter than you, who can teach you. And there's something really important that a lot of, the best organizations know what to do. And you have to be skills based. And so many organizations make the mistake of being organizational chart title based. And that is a big mistake. When you know exactly what skill set you have, what the skill set of your team is, what you're good at, you are malleable. You can work in a team of teams. You can do whatever formation, like a swarm of birds, okay? Whatever formation you need to have, or water. You just get it done because you have the skill set and you can analyze, you know what, I have a gap of this particular skill, then you know exactly who it is that you have to bring in the team, recruit, or bring from another division. And so I don't expect me to know to have every single skill set in the world and to be a master of every single skill set in the world. But I know what I'm really good at, what I'm great at, and what I don't know how to do well. And so when I'm forming my team, I'm making sure that we're very complementary, Krishnan. And that's how I approach everything in life. That's how I approach, by the way, not just my profession, but my family, my marriage, and myself as well. It has to be you look at the situation at hand and then you see, how you need to attack it and what skills you need for it. And you bring in the best. You bring in the best.
I think that was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. I mean, there is so much in there, kind of like, which I think is inspiration just generally to everybody, especially to kind of like, our female leadership group and that side of things as well. And like, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, just have to say once again, thank you very much to Orient Express for giving me my start in life. So it's been absolutely exceptional to speak to you. And I'm going to go and get motivated. I'm going to go and learn another language, move to another country, kind of like start something up as well. But it's exceptional, Hilda. So thank you so much.
No, thanks to you, Krishna, for the opportunity. And, the biggest message is you just got to do. You cannot sit still. You got to do. It becomes sometimes just go and do it again and do it again and do it again. And that's how you grow. And, I'm Latin American. At the end of the day, you got to enjoy life as well. So you got to know how to laugh and when to forgive yourself and just pick up yourself and go. So with that, thank you very much.